Hey everybody, Brian Zane here with the first in a brand new series on this channel in which I review classic pay-per-views. A while ago I put the call out to all of my $10 and up Patreon backers to submit their choices for what classic WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, whatever pay-per-views they want me to watch and review. And so this is the first installment in which I review WCW Superbrawl 2000. This was submitted to me by Eric Wolcott. Thank you very much, Eric, for the submission. So Superbrawl 2000, February 20th in the Cow Palace, a venue that is now very near and dear to my heart. Very interesting, pivotal time here in the history of WCW. This is the first pay-per-view after the Radicals, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn all jumped ship to WWF. This show takes place within the 3-month hiatus in which Vince Russo is not the head booker of the company. Kevin Sullivan is in his place. Bret Hart recently was taken off of TV due to his concussions. We would never see him in the ring again. So it's a very interesting period of time where pivotal players aren't there for in-ring stuff. You've got Kevin Sullivan trying to steer the ship after Vince Russo leaves. He's trying to basically complete what Vince Russo started with a lot of angles. So yeah, very weird period of time. Things very much in flux here. So without further ado, let's begin this review of Superbrawl 2000. The show begins with Mean Gene Okerlund sitting outside the commissioner's office. Kevin Nash is the kayfabe commissioner at this point in time of WCW, but he was sidelined with an ankle injury, not being able to be on TV. Jeff Jarrett knocked him out with a guitar the previous week, so now Jeff Jarrett is the acting commissioner in place of Kevin Nash. As Gene is standing out there, these 3 or 4 buxom ladies walk out of the office, and Mean Gene goes, "Ladies, what were you possibly doing in there?" And then Jeff Jarrett says that, you know, the ban on the Harris twins, the bodyguards of Jarrett, Ron, and Dunn, has been lifted, so the Harris twins will be at ringside for the main event. It's a 3-way dance with Sid Vicious defending his title against Scott Hall and Jeff Jarrett. So should be interesting to see what goes on there. The show begins with Tony Schiavone, Mike Tenay, and the poor man's Jerry Lawler, Mark Madden at ringside doing the announcing for the evening. The first match of the night is the Cruiserweight Championship Tournament Finals to determine a brand new champion as Lash LaRue takes on the artist formerly known as Prince Iakea, who is accompanied by Paisley, aka Queen Charmel. Very interesting circumstances to how this match came about. The title was relinquished by Oklahoma, aka Ed Ferrero, one of the head writers, doing a very tasteless Jim Ross impersonation. He won the title from Medusa the previous month, and then he decided to relinquish the belt immediately, so he had this tournament here. Lash LaRue beat Evan Courageous and Shannon Moore to get to the finals. The artist beat Kid Romeo and Psychosis to get there. The artist formerly known as Prince Iakea is a few months into his repackaging. He became the artist back in December. Like I mentioned, he comes out with Paisley, this beautiful woman at ringside. At the same time, he's like getting all touchy-feely with his male opponents. In this particular match, like at one point he's being hit with a sunset flip, and he tries to get some leverage by grabbing the referee's junk, and then once he blocks it, he licks his finger, rubs it down Lash LaRue's like neck and chest area. It's like, get it? Because Prince swings both ways, and that's who this gimmick is based off of. It was kind of a sloppy match. There were a few points where there were some misdirections and not so great looking bumps. It just didn't look that great on the whole. Paisley spends a good chunk of time on the apron during this match, not really doing anything. She's just standing there. And I don't know if it's a thing where she just kind of jumped her cue, because she is involved in the finish. I don't know if it's an issue where she jumps the cue and the referee's in no real hurry or sense of urgency to get her back down. I don't know if anyone tells her, no, you're early, get down. She's just there for a long, long time, at least 3 or 4 minutes into the match. Lash LaRue goes for a top rope Frankensteiner. Paisley grabs the artist's arms from behind. This is the thing she was setting up for all this time. Grabs the artist's arms from behind, so provides leverage so he doesn't come flying off the top with Lash. Lash takes a very scary looking, awkward back flippy bump onto the ground. Doesn't look very safe, doesn't look very good. The artist comes back with a jumping DDT, covers Lash, and wins to become the new Cruiserweight champion. Throughout the whole show, keeps going back to this point in backstage. There's this private door. No one's allowed in. No one knows who's inside. The Harris twins try and break down the door. They try to hire somebody to open it up with a key. They beat that guy up. It's an ongoing thing, but this is the first time here where you see the door, and it's very hush-hush. Who could the mystery person be? Hardcore Championship on the line as Bam Bam Bigelow defends against Brian Knobbs. This match confused the hell out of me, at least the story they were telling in it, because they showed a highlight before the match in which Finlay was a guest referee in a hardcore title match between the two earlier, several weeks ago, and Finlay deliberately cost Brian Knobbs the match and the championship. But here throughout this whole match, for reasons never really explained, Finlay is out there again, only this time he is directly trying to interfere on Knobbs' behalf, trying to mess with Bigelow. At one point earlier in the match, he distracts Bigelow. At one point, Knobbs and Bigelow are fighting on the outside in the concourse, and Finlay shows up and decks Bigelow, and Knobbs says, "No, let me do this on my own." This is a very stereotypical hardcore match. Just imagine what hardcore matches in WCW and the WWF were like around this time. That's pretty much all it was. They just pretty much hit each other with anything that wasn't laying down. They put Knobbs through a table, they hit each other with trash can lids and everything. At one point, Bigelow hits Knobbs with the greetings from Ashbury Park. He does not cover him. He goes to the top rope, and then again, Finlay comes back to distract Bigelow. Knobbs crotches Bigelow on the top rope, shoves him off the rope onto the outside, hits Bigelow with a trash can lid and covers him and wins the championship. And then you see Knobbs and Finlay celebrating together. Knobbs is in no way upset that Finlay interfered, despite Knobbs' explicit request, let me do this on my own, don't interfere for me. And everything's hunky-dory between the two of them now. I don't know why. I don't know why Finlay turned on Knobbs in the first place several weeks ago. You know, I didn't have the time to research that, but there you go. Knobbs is the new hardcore champion. After some dreadful acting by some security guards in the back as they're guarding Sid Vicious and Scott Hall's locker room doors, we then go to a 3-on-1 handicap match as 3 count. Evan Courageous, Shannon Moore, and Shane Helms go against Norman Smiley, the Big Wiggle. Smiley is wearing a Jerry Rice jersey to pander to the San Francisco crowd. He's selling injured ribs from a table spot he had a week or two ago on Thunder, and he's selling the ribs, and they're going for that pretty quickly. They're all very heavily taped up. At one point earlier in the match, Shane goes for a twisting, very high senton. Think of like the swanton that Jeff Hardy does if he got a lot more air and then twisted in midair while he was doing it. It was very impressive. He missed the swanton, but eventually the numbers game catches up to Norman Smiley, and the finish just left me scratching my head because Evan Courageous hits a beautiful twisting corkscrew splash on the top onto Smiley. Okay. Then Shane Helms hits a frog splash onto Smiley. Great. But then the actual move that puts him away is Shannon Moore puts him in this really shitty looking lion tamer. He doesn't really get the full rotation on it, and then Smiley taps, and that's the end of the match. Like, really? Like, that's how you end the match? You've got these two big high-flying maneuvers and then just like this awful-looking submission. Because Shannon Moore is so short compared to Norman Smiley, he can't get the full extension, and that's how the match ends. Up next is a special main event match pitting the Demon versus the Wall. The reason they call this a special main event 3 matches into the show is because WCW was contractually obligated by the band Kiss to put the Demon in a main event match on pay-per-view that year, so this is their way of getting around it. Brilliant stuff. Anyway, the Demon is making his entrance. He's drooling the blood-like substance, and Mark Madden's like, what is he, spitting up blood? And Tony Schiavone just totally kills the gimmick and kills the magic, going, oh no, it's food coloring carousel. I'm like, fuck Tony, like it drove me crazy when he said that. The Wall doesn't come out at first when his music plays, so the Demon goes back up the ramp and looks for him, and then the Wall sneak attacks him from behind. Starts out very strong in this match, but the Demon does make a comeback. At one point, the Demon does an Irish whip out of the corner onto the Wall, but he lets go immediately, so the Wall has to run all the way across the ring by himself. Boo! At one point, the Wall is climbing to the top rope. The Demon grabs him and beels him off, but almost drops him on his head. It was really scary how close that was. I can't imagine why they didn't push the Demon into main event position. Then the Demon goes on the top rope, but the Wall recovers, grabs him by the throat, big top rope choke slam, and that's all she wrote. The Wall beats the Demon. That was a great main event match there, Demon. Another ongoing theme throughout this night is that Ernest the Cat Miller is promising everyone that James Brown, the Godfather of Soul, will be at Superbrawl 2000 for reasons. He's doing a backstage interview with Mean Gene. He says he'll be there, and he ends the interview by just laughing and going, shut up, Mean Gene. Up next is the infamous Skins match as Tank Abbott takes on Big Al, who is his kayfabe former bodyguard. It turns out Big Al is actually Al Green, who was formerly of the Master Blasters. This was a brutal match. First of all, they never really tell you what a Skins match is. It's only later you find out, oh, it's a leather jacket on a pole match. That's all it is, and it's just who the first person to grab the leather jacket wins the match. So the match begins with Big Al taking his belt off and having he and Tank Abbott strap their right arms together, their right hands together, kind of like the fight scene in Beat It. And so they're just slugging each other for like 2 minutes with lefts, and they're just grunting at each other. And then eventually Big Al hits Tank Abbott in the face with like a straight punch and knocks him down, which is terrible for Tank's image because the whole thing was like, oh, Tank Abbott's this big fighter, he'll just beat the shit out of you and he'll beat you. Like in the promo package for this, you can hear Tony Schiavone say in the promo, oh, Tank Abbott's victories have been train wrecks, which is the best way to describe this match. So anyway, Big Al knocks out Tank Abbott and just spends the next couple of minutes just like dragging him around, teasing he's gonna do stuff with him. Like first he drags him around, he's teasing, oh, he's gonna run his crotch under the ring post, but he doesn't do that. So then Big Al gets to the corner and just like stands awkwardly on Tank's face for a couple of seconds, which causes Tank to wake up miraculously and just snap and just beat the fuck out of him. At this point, Tank puts Big Al on his shoulders like a fireman's carry and goes up to the top rope with Al on his shoulders. Then he drops Big Al. Al falls off and lands on the floor. Tank Abbott gets down to the floor, punches Big Al one more time, goes back into the ring, climbs the turnbuckle, grabs a leather jacket off the pole, and wins the match. But we're not done there, because then what happens next is Tank procures a knife from the jacket, goes down to the ring, and just holds it up to Big Al's throat. He's yelling, "I could fucking kill you!" And then the camera cuts away to a large, wide crane shot of the crowd. Don't even see what's going on there anymore. Let's cut the mic for that camera. It was just the most awkward thing in the world. And then what was even more brilliant is that in the next segment, Tony Schiavone tried to clarify he had a pair of scissors and was trying to cut Big Al's goatee off. Sure, Tony, that's what happened. What a bad match. Up next, a match to determine who gets the rights to the Harlem Heat name, as Big T, formerly known as Ahmed Johnson, takes on Booker. Not Booker T, he's just Booker now, because you see Stevie Ray and his lawyer Jay Biggs, that name sounds familiar, Booker T and Stevie Ray had a falling out, so now Stevie Ray lawyered up, and now he has the rights to the name of all the names and properties and images of Harlem Heat. That includes Booker T's flames on his tights, the letter T that went to Big T now, the music. Booker T comes out on this match to some Leave It to Beaver sounding music. I checked it, I looked it up, it's not the Beaver Cleavage song. It's slightly different. So Booker T is fighting for his identity here against the former Ahmed Johnson. And whatever athletic ability Ahmed had back in 1996 is gonzo by 2000. It's like Booker T is wrestling a sentient refrigerator here. So Booker gets all fired up, he's got all his specials saved up, he hits Big T with an axe kick, a side kick. He decks Jay Biggs, who gets on the apron. He hits Big T with the bookend. He goes to the top rope, kicks Stevie Ray off the apron. He hits a missile drop kick and then goes for the cover. But as he gets to 1, 2, the lights go out. You hear like a weird bell tolling. I don't know if it was a bell tolling or it was microphone feedback. I don't know what it was. The lights come back up and an even bigger fucker shows up. I forget this guy's name now, but he shows up on the apron. He's staring down Booker T. Booker T is in disbelief. Like, who is this man who seems to be from his past? And then Ahmed Johnson hits him with a very sloppy looking Pro River plunge and pins Booker to win the match. So Booker T is robbed of his identity once and for all. He will eventually become G.I. Bro and then eventually just get his name back. But yeah, very dark point in Booker T's career here as Big T wins the match. Jesus. Up next, Vampiro takes on Billy Kidman in singles action. It's the third singles match they've had, and they have one win apiece. And in that time, since they've had their singles matches, they were also briefly tag team partners, in which one would cost the other the match or walk out on them or hit them with a chair. It's this very interesting, like, respectful rivalry that has bad blood in it, but they're not like, they don't hate each other at this point. It's very interesting how this has been built up. So it's actually one of the better matches tonight. Both guys do a very good job in the ring. At one point, Tori gets on the apron to tend to Kidman. Kidman gets knocked into Tori and she falls on the floor. And then later, about a minute later, Vampiro grabs a chair and is about to hit Kidman with it, which I'm confused about because is this no DQ? Anyway, Tori grabs the chair from Vampiro and then Kidman turns Vampiro around and drop kicks him, the chair, into his face. At one point in the match, Mark Madden says on commentary, these two by this time next year will be wrestling for the US Championship and then in 2 years for the World Championship. Sorry, Mark, wrong on both counts. The match ends when Kidman hits Vampiro with like an inverted DDT from the top, but he's behind Vampiro, who's faced away. It's a very convoluted setup. He basically has to jump in the air and go around Vampiro's body to land behind Vampiro as he's taking the back bump. It didn't look like the cleanest thing in the world. I don't think the real contact was there, but Kidman covers Vampiro and wins the match. It's a Sicilian stretcher match for the Tag Team Championships as the Mamalukes, accompanied by Disco Inferno, defend their titles against David Flair and Crowbar, who are accompanied by Daphne. Say all that 5 times fast. Johnny the Bull says in a promo before the match that he is so upset with David Flair and Crowbar, he can't even eat his cheese sandwich. Take that for what you will. The rules of this match are both members of the team have to be wheeled out on stretchers and taken out of the arena, ringside area, in order for the other team to win. So bear that in mind. This is just a wild, chaotic match. It's basically like what you saw with Bam Bam Bigelow and Brian Knobbs, but just with a bunch more people and a lot of screaming, because that's Daphne's gimmick at the time. She just screams and screams and screams. At one point, she hits Johnny the Bull with a Hurricane Run in the middle of the ring, and then she maces Disco Inferno, who's at ringside doing commentary. He gets in the ring, he gets maced by Daphne, and then at one point after he's done selling for a while, he goes back to the commentary table. He's blinded, and then it's pretty funny stuff from Disco, because he's blind doing commentary, and then he hears a bump. he hears like the crash in the ring. Was that good for us? What happened? That was actually pretty funny stuff by Disco. But yeah, these guys are just belting each other with everything that's not nailed down. Lead pipes are involved, chairs are involved. At one point, Johnny the Bull is taping David Flair to one of the stretchers in a not so convincing manner. The referees, turns out, are the ones who actually wheel the stretchers up the ramp and everything, but I think it's kind of weird to have the refs help out. At one point, so it's had Crowbar going like 2-on-1 against the Mamalukes. He's the valiant 2-on-1 effort to defend the championships. At one point, the bell just randomly rings, and it's like Daphne who rang it, and it played no part in the match. It's just, whatever, Daphne's crazy. The crowd is just dead for this at this point. They've kind of got blown up by everything else going on. They're just kind of silent for a lot of this, especially the 2-on-1 portion. Crowbar tries to fight back, but he gets beat up with a lead pipe by Johnny the Bull. He gets put through a table when Big Vito jumps from the top rope to the outside, through the table, brutal looking spot there. They tape Crowbar up to the stretcher, and as they wheel him out, they stop what they're doing, and the referees wheel Crowbar up, and while that's going on, then they grab Daphne, put her in a wheelchair, tape her to that, and then Disco shoves a sock in her mouth and tapes that up, and then the Mamalukes and Disco Inferno all wheel up Daphne and Crowbar together, and they win the match and they retain. What a wild and crazy match this was. So I guess WWE doesn't own the rights to Ernest Miller's WCW theme, because in this network version, he comes out to the worst dubbed theme I've ever heard in my life. Like the worst alternate theme you could possibly come up with Ernest the Cat Miller, because Ernest Miller's theme was very James Brown, it was very upbeat, and this one was just like half the speed. I was almost in minor key. It was just so bad. It was dreadful. And the worst part about it was you could hear when you had commentary underneath, you could hear the original theme conflicting with the shitty dub theme. It was just so bad. And it's not the last time we're going to hear it in this segment. So Ernest Miller comes out, cutting a promo. He says, James Brown will be here tonight. It's weird because I think he's still a heel at this point. He hasn't gone face yet. He's still a heel, and he's running down people in the audience. Then you hear that same terrible music, and it's like, oh, James Brown is here. And it's like this really terrible James Brown impersonator. It's like some other black dude in like a wig and a king's crown and a robe, and it's really terrible. It's very cheesy. The Maestro, who is Ernest Miller's rival at the time, it's the antithesis of everything Ernest Miller, because Ernest Miller is like soul and funk, and he's dancing and stuff, and the Maestro is very classical music themed, and so he comes out with his valet Symphony, who I believe was Ryan Shamrock for a time in WWF. So he's coming out, and basically he's telling Ernest to make good on their wager, because earlier the Maestro said if Ernest Miller could not produce James Brown, then Ernest Miller would have to be his lackey for an indefinite period of time. The Stro knocks the wig off the fake James Brown, and Ernest Miller, who's still trying to keep the ruse up, says, don't you dare disrespect the Godfather like that. And then in this famous moment, the Stro goes, says who? And then off camera you hear, says me. And they react like, who was that? And then more badly dubbed music. It's not the same song as before, but it's still a bad alternative to whatever actually they played that night. Out come these sexy people dancing. It's kind of like the Rosebuds if they were a little more tastefully done. So the Rosebuds come out, and then out comes the real James Brown with this massive posse. No reason for all these people to be out there. There's men, there's women. What are they all doing out there? And there's pyro and everything. People are going nuts for James Brown. The real James Brown comes out. He gets in the ring, and he and Ernest Miller do some dancing for a bit, and that's pretty much all that happens. So from beginning to end, this whole thing goes 10 minutes with Ernest Miller coming out, fake James Brown, Maestro, real James Brown. They do some dancing. James Brown starts rattling off names of his songs. I feel good, living in America. And that's pretty much it. And even though James Brown even him being there really didn't add anything to the show, like, wouldn't it have been worth it or worth trying to promote the fact that James Brown was going to be there? Like, I don't know how many more people they would have had buying tickets or buying the pay-per-view, but it had to have been better than what they did, which is this very non-committal James Brown might show up, which is never a good sign to say that. And yeah, it's just so weird because Ernest Miller, I don't know if he was still a heel after this, because he brought up the fake James Brown. So was James Brown like just bailing him out? Did Ernest Miller know that the actual James Brown was there? It was very confusing stuff. It was overall kind of an entertaining segment with James Brown coming out and everything, but that last couple of minutes didn't really make the whole preceding 8 worth anything, and the fact they didn't promote anything also was kind of a question mark. Up next is a death match as Ric Flair takes on Terry Funk, who's accompanied by Dustin Rhodes. If a wrestler cannot answer the 10 count after a pinfall or submission, then the match is over. In the promo package to this, a few weeks ago on Nitro, Funk beats the hell out of David Flair, and Flair says he'll kick Funk's cowboy, woo, ass, woo, cowboy, woo, Funk, Woo! It's worth noting that Ric Flair is 51 when this match takes place and Funk is 56, but age aside, this is actually a pretty good match. These guys, they're just utilizing the space around them. They're doing a lot of fighting on the floor. It's a big brawl, basically. Terry Funk hits 2 vertical suplexes on Ric Flair on the floor, and the second one you hear Flair go, "Oh shit!" They're trading pinfalls here. After the suplexes, Funk pins Ric Flair. He gets up before the 10 count's over. Flair attacks Funk's leg with the chair, gets him back in the ring, puts him in the figure 4, and Funk instantly taps out, but he gets up before the 10 count. At one point, Funk hits Flair with 2 pile drivers, one of them on the concrete, one is on the padding, the other's on the concrete, and Flair's just screaming in agony, "Oh Jesus, my neck!" And then he gets Flair back in the ring, and Funk grabs the house mic and goes, "Ric Flair, do you want to quit?" It's very reminiscent of their I Quit match back in 1989. Great throwback there. He pile drives Ric Flair through a table in the ring. Holy shit. Funk grabs another table, he puts Ric Flair onto it, and he's going to the top rope for a moonsault attempt, but Flair gets up off the table, grabs Funk, throws him off and through the table, covers him, gets the 3 count, and then as they're both fighting to get back up, Funk cannot answer the 10 count time, although honestly, you could tell the referee was kind of speeding up the 10 count by the end to make sure he didn't answer it. And so Ric Flair wins the death match. It was a brutal match, but by God, it was entertaining. I'm kind of surprised no blood was shed here, but there you have it. After this brutal match with these 2 middle-aged men, it was actually one of the better matches of the night, in my opinion. Michael Buffer is here to announce the last couple of matches of the night as Hulk Hogan takes on Lex Luger in the semi-main event. This is Hogan's first pay-per-view back on WCW since Halloween Havoc the previous year. He showed up in that match with Sting for the title in street clothes, just walked out, didn't say a word, laid down for Sting, and walked off. And that was the last we saw him for a while, but Lex Luger called him out in a promo. Hogan comes back, and this is his first big match back. Luger's been breaking arms left and right. He's been putting people's arms in the little folding part of the chair, stepping on the chair. He broke Jimmy Hart's arm. He broke Hulk Hogan's arm. Hulk Hogan in his pre-match promo said that if Elizabeth gets in my way, I'm going to snap, crackle, and pop her, brother. And so pretty scary stuff. And the whole thing with the build of this match was, which Hogan will we see? Will we see Hulk Hogan? Will we see Hollywood Hogan? Or in the words of Mike Tenay, some deadly combination, the likes of which we've never seen before. That would have been interesting. The crowd here loves Hulk Hogan. They're cheering everything he's doing. They pop more for him than almost like anyone else on this show, bar none. Hogan's got a cast on his arm after he had it broke the previous week by Luger, and he's not selling the broken arm, but he's using the cast as a weapon, because everyone knows when you have a cast on your arm, it acts like a magical force field. It can't hurt you, but it's like devastating to the other wrestlers. So they're fighting for a while. Elizabeth, at one point, who's with Lex Luger, wields a bat, but then Jimmy Hart comes out, takes the bat from her, so you got 2 managers now. Luger hits Hogan with a vertical suplex and teases the torture rack, but Hogan hulks up, brother, and after he knocks down Luger, he grabs the weight belt from Jimmy Hart. Luger hits Hogan with a low blow that the referee somehow does not see. It's right in front of him, but he somehow misses it. Not the first time that's going to happen in this match. Hogan reverses the Irish whip, and Hart hits Luger from behind with his casted arm. Again, right in front of the referee, somehow doesn't see it. The referee's got tunnel vision because he's in the direction of that, but he's looking right at Lex Luger when it's happening. So I guess it's how he misses him getting hit. I don't understand what happened. So Hogan hits Luger with the clothesline of his own casted arm, leg drop, 1, 2, 3, Hogan wins. And so he's going to whip Luger with the weight belt after that. But then Ric Flair comes up. Ric Flair and Lex Luger have had a partnership over the last few weeks, so they're double teaming on Hogan. Then Sting comes out and makes the save. The heels run off, and Sting and Hogan are celebrating in the ring together at the end. It was like a standard Hulk Hogan match against an opponent who is by no means a technical wizard in the ring. So for what it was, I thought it was an okay match, but just a lot of stuff where the referee blatantly missed some stuff. Main event time, the 3-way dance for the WCW Championship as Sid Vicious defends against Jeff Jarrett and Scott Hall. There is dissension in the ranks of the NWO Silver and Black, with Kevin Nash being the commissioner who's laid out with an injury. Jeff Jarrett attacks him. Scott Hall's gunning for the same title that Jeff Jarrett wants. It's a big clusterfuck, about as big of a clusterfuck as this match was. If Vince Russo was not booking this match, then Kevin Sullivan must have been damn sure influenced by Russo's work, because this match was atrocious. This match goes through a bunch of referees, not one referee, not 2 referees, not 3, not 4, not 5, 6 referees. That the whole thing. Jeff Jarrett is just beating the shit out of referees left and right. The Harris twins are meddling the entire time. At one point, it's just basically 2 matches at once. You got Sid on the outside fighting the Harris twins. You've got Jeff Jarrett and Scott Hall having their own match. Eventually, one of the last refs standing is Slick Johnson, the crooked referee who works with Jeff Jarrett. Scott Hall hits Jeff Jarrett with the outsider's edge while Slick comes in, and he goes to 3 count, but he can't make the final 3. Oh, he hurt his shoulder. Oh, because he's so evil and corrupt. Then out comes Roddy Piper wearing a referee shirt and a big-ass arm brace. And the last time I think we saw him in a referee capacity was Starrcade 99 when he just waltzed in at the end of the Bret Hart-Goldberg match and just does a shitty recreation of the Montreal Screwjob. And he comes back out here. He stops Slick from making the 3 count after Jarrett hits Hall with a guitar. He decks Slick Johnson, and then Sid hits a chokeslam on Jarrett, a powerbomb on Hall, and wins the match, retains the championship after Roddy makes the 3 count. What a shit show this match was. I don't think this match went longer than 6 minutes. It was a bad way to end the show, but Sid is still your world champion. So that was WCW Super Brawl 2000. Not too long after this pay-per-view took place, the NWO would completely disband, Kevin Sullivan would be out, and Vince Russo would be back in as head booker of WCW alongside Eric Bischoff. The whole New Blood versus Millionaires angle would soon begin. This is a very weird transition period in WCW. Those 3 months where Kevin Sullivan was booking, he was clearly just trying to like patch things up and right the ship, trying to make things seem somewhat coherent. But I mean, that main event had Russo written all over it, and I mean the whole show I would have to almost give it like probably like a C grade. There were some good matches. Kidman and Vampiro was a good match. I thought the death match was a lot of fun. The Sicilian stretcher match was chaotic, but at least it was, and Daphne was super grating and annoying, but at least it was just some good spots thrown in there. But everything else I just felt was kind of a dud. By far the worst match of the night for me had to be the Skins match between Tank Abbott and Big Al. Just a dreadful, sloppy, terrible looking match. And a close second was the Demon versus the Wall in the special main event. The actual main event wasn't that much to write home about either. Even the Cruiserweight Championship match at the opener was not a terrific Cruiserweight match. I was never really enthralled with Prince Iaukea, whether he was the artist or not, and Lash LaRue never did a whole lot for me. I did at one point in high school, oh, wouldn't it be cool to grow the sideburns kind of like his, but I'm glad I never did that. The James Brown thing with Ernest Miller and the Maestro, for as entertaining as the last couple of minutes of that 10-minute bit might have been, it was still just an overwhelming waste of time and money. Think of all the money they spent on getting James Brown there for that show, for that one little appearance, and they did nothing at all to try and promote it. They didn't say, hey, James Brown's going to be there. They say, hey, he might show up, and it might just be Ernest Miller talking out his ass. So it's like, what was the point? What was the point of spending that money and bringing him in there and doing nothing with him? It was just so, it's a really big head scratcher for that whole thing. That segment really symbolizes a lot of what was wrong with WCW at the time. This was not a great pay-per-view. There were some moments of brilliance, and there were just some points where I couldn't help but laugh at some of the commentary. But other than that, it was just not a great show. But I mean, fun to look back on and see, just remember what was going on in that time period, just remember what was happening in WWF at the time, in WCW. A lot of fun, a good trip down memory lane. So that was the first of what I hope is several classic pay-per-view reviews on this channel. Thanks again to Eric Wolcott, who is a backer on Patreon, for submitting this request. I have a lot of requests, and I have a big list that I'm going to go through. And if you want to help dictate the pace of where these classic pay-per-view reviews go, become a $10 or more backer on Patreon. Submit your request for a pay-per-view you want me to review. It could be pretty much anything as long as I can get access to it, and fun will be had, or maybe some misery, who knows. This show is kind of a little bit from column A and column B. Let me know what you thought about this review in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.